All right, I guess we're live. Welcome, guys. So another day, another discussion. I'm really happy today. I have Waleed with us. Hi, Waleed. How are you?
I'm good, man. Thank you so much for having me on. I really appreciate it.
So in case, guys, you don't know a lot about Waleed, so I'll tell you how I came across Waleed. So I first heard Waleed on our common friend Sham Sharma via him. So Sham was on Waleed's channel on YouTube, and they were discussing the Pakistan elections and Imran Khan, and I really got excited, hearing them discuss the great Pakistani election. And then I heard Waleed on the Pangburn Philosophy podcast, and I really got fascinated. And then obviously I went and checked out his videos, and I'd recommend all of you to go and check them out. I think Waleed does the best Zakir Naik impression on planet Earth right now. And I have to say, I hope by the end of this discussion, Waleed says that was a very good question, brother.
The brother asked a very good question.
Yeah.
So there you go. Exactly. Yeah. So I really appreciate that.
So Waleed, first things first, why don't you tell everyone a bit about yourself and how you got into this? So from whatever little I've known, obviously you were a devout Muslim, or you at least were nominally theistic Muslim, and you've had your journey from that to what you call yourself now, an ex-Muslim. And then obviously you have the satire element added to it via your channel. So go for it.
Yeah. So just like you said, I was Muslim for I think around 20 up until the age of 24, 25. I'm from a Pakistani background, lived most of my life in the UK. I was born in Pakistan, but I came to the UK when I was 1. So I had a pretty normal upbringing, normal family, stable family household, everything normal, good. And I obviously left Islam around the age of 24, 25. So since then, I would say I've been very interested in religion since I was young. But since then, I've been wanting to do something on YouTube. I used to watch a ton of Zakir Naik videos when I was growing up. It used to be on Beef TV, on our sort of TV. And I was very impressed by Zakir Naik because he was someone who memorized everything. He was verse this, chapter that, this page, Bhagavad Gita, Bible. Like, this guy had memorized every single book on the planet. If something was written on paper, he has memorized it. So I was like, wow, man, this guy's got an amazing memory. He's sharp. He can answer any question. So I was a big fan of his. But at one point in time, I slowly changed my opinion on him, and I sort of gravitated towards more interesting and more intellectual Muslims. And I ended up leaving Islam totally. But he always, because he was almost like my first love, your sort of first crush. You have your sort of boyfriend or girlfriend, but Islamically speaking, he was my first love when it came to scholars or imams or speakers in Islam. So I'd watched a ton of his material. So I thought, why not make some videos on Zakir Naik, because I know him the best. I know his material the best. So I was in between jobs. I had some spare time, so I made a video, and I thought, let me see what happens. People responded very well. Muslims responded very well. And since then, I've been making videos on not only him, but other Muslim speakers, like Dawah Man in the UK. He's like a street Dawah preacher. How's it going, people? It's like, this and that, why we're speaking like that. So, like, assalamu alaikum, all that kind of stuff. So, other people as well across the world. I've just been making satirical videos, trying to make people laugh, trying to make people think about their religion in a new and different way. Because I thought there's so many videos on YouTube where people are point by point refuting Islam, and not only Islam but other religions, and I thought, that's boring. I haven't got time for that. Let me make a short 3-minute video demonstrating my point and make someone laugh. That sounds good to me.
You may make a very interesting point here. You try to bring satire in Islam, and as you know, these days, criticizing Islam has its own risk associated with it. So, what has been your experience till now? Because I went through a lot of your videos, not just Zakir Naik ones. The other ones where what was that one? One of your earlier videos about a sheikh. What kind of a sheikh you should be.
Oh yes, that was how to. 5 easy steps how to become a sheikh.
Yeah, so that one. So what has been the response? See, obviously, because you might be an ex-Muslim, but when it comes to family and friends and all that, you're surrounded by Muslims. So first
Yeah.
question would be, how have they responded to your satire? I mean, has the family responded well to it? Or the family will be like, as they say in Punjabi, ki karda pe hai? So
I've been hearing a lot of that. I have been hearing that. I think in the beginning they were like, "What are you doing? Where is this going?" Like, चलो ठीक है अगर कर रहा है तो करने दो लेकिन मौलवी the picture or why are you always behind the Maulvis? Just make fun of someone else, but why are you always making fun of the Maulvis? But I think for a long time no one knew I was ex-Muslim, so I was making these videos as a Muslim. They thought I was a Muslim, so they didn't really get it, but they sort of laughed and thought, haha, whatever, it's fine. I actually on purpose didn't want to tell people on YouTube that I wasn't ex-Muslim because I wanted people to judge the comedy or judge the video on its own merit. If I tell you a joke and then you in return say, hang on, I'm only going to laugh if you're the same religion as me, that's not the point of the joke. The joke is, the joke is a standalone joke or a standalone video. Judge the video on its own merit. So I try to avoid getting into, are you Muslim, ex-Muslim? By the way, I got accused of being a Hindu and a Jew so much, because anyone that makes fun of Zakir Naik has to be a Hindu or a Jew. There's no way you can be a Muslim and make fun of Zakir Naik, because obviously he's after the Prophet, he's the next one down. So yeah, I actually tried to avoid getting into those sort of conversations, but obviously like a year or two later I had to reveal, or not had to, but I thought I said, it's only fair that I tell people what I really am. I'm an ex-Muslim. But a lot of Muslims in the comment section on YouTube, they say, well done, I'm a Muslim, I enjoy your comedy, keep going, I think you're doing a great job. So obviously you get some idiots who are just write stupid stuff. But to be honest with you, I think the average Muslim wants to have a laugh on some level at their own religion, or at least at their own sheikhs. Because Muslims, believe it or not, are human beings like everyone else. They see their sheikh, their imam giving their speech, and sometimes they think, what is this guy on about? What is he talking about? So I think there is that demand for humor, but I think because of the unfortunate repressive attitude of Islam towards humor and free speech, maybe they can't say it openly. Maybe they can't, do it themselves openly. But me as an ex-Muslim, if I'm doing it on YouTube, maybe if they're anonymous, they can say, keep going, whatever it is. So I certainly think there is a demand for this. It's just it takes a bit of time for people to express this demand because of the unfortunate nature of the unfortunate repressive nature of Islam when it comes to free speech.
Another thing I was interested in knowing, so whenever one takes a cultural risk, because what you're doing is basically a cultural risk in my eyes, you're going after your own people. I don't know when, with quotes, your own people, I say that. So, there is this, there will be obviously the haters, but they will be very straight up with you, like, how dare you do this? How dare you go after my faith? You are an ex-Muslim. Get the hell out of there. What do you know? Then there will be the one who will find it funny. Then there are the ones who find it funny, but they can't admit openly that they genuinely find it funny, and they might be messaging you privately. Yare, bada acha tha. This was really funny. Keep doing it, but just don't say I told you. So do you have a lot of the third one, or basically it's either I hate you or I like you?
I get more of the second and third. I'll be completely honest with you. I get like people must think like, being ex-Muslim, making fun of Islam, you must get a lot of hate mail. I really don't. Most of the messages I get is, listen, man, you're really funny. I love your impression. Or, I watched your video. It completely changed my mind or something, or whatever it is. I don't really get that much abuse. I really don't. Which I'm actually kind of surprised. I'm like, why am I not getting more abuse, man? I feel like I haven't done a good video if I don't get abuse. But honestly, I get a lot of positive messages from Muslims. And some people have commented on my videos and said, I have changed my mind on certain things in Islam. Some people have. I got one message from a Hindu person. I think it was a young man saying I was about to convert to Islam, because the girl that I'm interested in, she's a Muslim, and I was about to convert to Islam, but I watched one of your videos and now I'm not. Now, I actually don't remember making any videos saying don't convert to Islam. I actually, just to put that out there, I'm not saying don't convert to Islam, but I don't know what video he watched, but he said I was about to do that. And now I'm not going to convert to Islam. One other person on my, I made this video about the end of times, you know, the day of judgment, the Dajjal, as they say in Arabic, the Antichrist. I don't know if you watched that video, but in that video, I mean, we have this sort of belief in Islam and also Christianity, and I think Judaism, and I think all religions have some version of an end of day sort of scenario. And in the Islamic / Christian one, there's the Antichrist. And you know, I actually remember being in sixth form, so when I was 16, 17, in school, and we had it was during Ramadan, and it was a Friday prayer. And obviously, before the Friday prayers, there's the Friday khutbah or the speech, and it was one of our own students who was doing it. The sort of the guy with the longest beard had to do it, because obviously that's the rule by how you judge how religious someone is. But anyway, he was giving his speech on, you know, the end of days. You know, it is written in the Hadith, in the Quran, whatever it is. These are the signs of the end of days. The Antichrist will appear, and he will be short, and he will have one eye, and he will be muscular, like this, and someone from the crowd said, "Fitness first," which is a gym in the UK. So the moment he said "fitness first," everyone started laughing, because this guy, he was trying to build up this atmosphere, like suspense and horror, and he will be this, he will be that, he will be this tall and this short, and he will have muscular, have one eye, and on his forehead he will be written Kafir, but only the Muslims will be able to read it. The non-Muslims won't be able to read it. And he was sort of trying to build this story like we should all be scared. But the moment that guy said fitness first, the whole environment, the whole atmosphere just completely diffused. And I couldn't take it seriously anymore. And a lot of people couldn't take that story seriously anymore. So I did a skit. And I wasn't making this up. I literally was just saying the description of the Antichrist. And right at the end of the video, the Antichrist appears. I'm on my knees, because obviously I'm short. I'm doing this, and I've got socks in my arms to show that I've got muscles. I've got kafir written on my forehead in Arabic. iPad, because I'm blind and I've only got one eye. And also the Antichrist will claim to be Jesus. So I'm in this thingy, and I say, "Hi, I'm Jesus." And obviously, and the sheikh is scared, whatever. And someone commented saying, "I used to believe in this. I used to be so scared. Like, the Antichrist is going to come. He's going to do this. He's going to take over the world. But now that you've physically shown me what it looks like, I can't physically take it seriously anymore. I can't." And that's what I'm trying to do. I wasn't even making this up. Like, people think that you only make fun of people by making stuff up. If you just show them what they believe, that is enough. I'm literally showing you what you believe. And if people can't take that, don't blame me. Have a go at your own scriptures. So I get a lot of those kind of messages as well.
Yeah, it's very interesting that when we try to look at our own faiths in a very casual manner. Sometimes I feel people take their faith far more seriously even than the mullahs or the pandits do. This is my genuine belief. I think the mullahs, they have a job to do. I always say the Maulvi or the mullah or the ulama in general, when it comes to Islam or even the church in case of Christianity. Hinduism is slightly different because it's a bottom-up religion. There is no top-down system. Everybody can do their own thing. So they're slightly different in that sense. Or also, by the way, Hinduism does not have an end of days concept. We're born again, right? Reincarnate.
Yes,
so
yes.
We don't have to worry about that. We are born again. So what I was trying to say, I get the mullah taking the religion, or pretending to take the religion seriously. That's his product, right? He has to sell it. If he doesn't take it seriously, who the hell is going to take it seriously? But I always found this aspect amongst devout religious people. Somehow they take that shit too seriously. And now I'm going to connect this. My question to you is, do you think of a problem within the Muslim community in comparison to other communities today is that Muslims take their religion far more seriously than all the other communities?
I would say in general, yes, in general. Now, of course, I know plenty of Muslims who drink, who smoke, who go to clubs, who have girlfriends and don't really have any connection with Islam, other than the fact that their name is Muhammad or Ahmed or whatever. But in general, I would say countries that are predominantly Muslim, do tend to take Islam more seriously than countries that are predominantly Christian. They take Islam more seriously than Christians take Christianity seriously, in general. Of course, you'll find exceptions and whatnot. And that's because I think Christianity, along with Judaism, they've secularized, they've separated church and state. They have had a different history with their religions than the history that we have, that Muslims have had with Islam. And of course, something which adds to that is the fact that from a civilizational point of view, Islam is at its lowest it's ever been. Even when Islam was a growing religion or a minority, it was at least respectable. They had a civilization. They were ruling. I mean, yes, all empires are bad. I'm not trying to glorify anything. All empires are bad. Great, but at least when they had an empire, they were ruling. Now they have I don't know how many billion Muslims. Yet, if you were to take the GDP out from Muslim countries out of the world GDP, excluding oil, it literally wouldn't budge that much. It's like not even 1%.
Wow.
So from a civilizational point of view, where are we? We're at our lowest. People can say Western foreign policy. People can say all sorts of things, and then there even may be truth in that. The fact is, we are at our weakest. So when you're in a defensive position, you're not in the best place to examine your own ideas. In fact, if anything, you're more likely to hold on to them even more. So, and this is true of if you're being oppressed, if you perceive, whether it's real or perceived, if you're being oppressed, you're going to hold on to your identity even more. So if you're a black person, or a Muslim, you think, I'm being oppressed because I'm Muslim or because I'm black, and this is the most important part of my identity, and you will build your whole narrative of life around that. And that's what's happening with many Muslims, even the Muslims that aren't being oppressed while living in the West, like good lives, because Islam, like Christianity, is a civilization, not only a religion. There's a religious part, like a praying and fasting, and there's the civilizational part, which is the ummah, the congregation. So even if someone's being oppressed somewhere else in the world, you will feel that oppression. So nowadays, and for many years, the Muslim narrative is one of we are oppressed, and we are oppressed because we're Muslim. The West is after us. The Jews are after us. The Hindus are after us. Everyone is after us. So they take it seriously because they haven't secularized, and also because they are in this defensive position, which may also, like, genuinely they may have been oppressed, and they are being oppressed on something like Iraq, all this, that. So there's genuine oppression, but there's also this perceived oppression as well, and that's why they take it more seriously.
On the point of oppression, I actually wanted to talk to you about this. It's an offshoot of that. Nowadays it's kind of in fashion. It's either you say Islam is a religion of peace and you say everything is so nice and hunky-dory, or you have the other side to it where nothing good can come out of Islam, nothing good can come out of the Muslim community at large, and everything is horrible. Now, when I was going through your videos, they were funny, but what I found was there is an element where you have kind of not crossed a line when it comes to certain issues. Not that you're being forced to do that, but what I found in your humor was that you want to make fun of your community and its habits, and you just happen to be Muslim. So because what I see these days is there's this fashion, if you want to get very good clicks on Twitter or Facebook or on YouTube or on social media in general, you bash Islam or you defend Islam. It's like, Islam is the global clickbait right now. Everything is, about, or surrounded around Islam, or in the West, I think it's social justice warriors. Now, the problem that happens is that a lot of the material that comes out really has no substance. And it's just, the same old grind. I mean, if I wanted to criticize Islam, I think I can read critiques about Islam 20 years ago, and I don't see anything new coming out on it. Honestly, it's that. Now, I myself, I'm an atheist too. Now, obviously, me being a Hindu, my case is different. I don't have to leave the Hindu community because Hinduism accepts atheism as a legitimate point of view. But I get that atheism is blasphemy in Islam, and the Quran says you should be killed, yada, 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 yada. Obviously, there is a difference between how many people would actually take it seriously. But My question would be that, I personally may not like so many aspects of Hinduism, but I don't go around bashing it 24/7 ad nauseum. And I'm not saying Hinduism is as bad as Islam. If you ask me, I believe Hinduism as a faith is far better than Islam at a theological level. But that's my point of view, and that's okay. People can disagree with me. But when it comes to Islam, do you think that sometimes, it's not that important, and what you're doing might be far more effective than, going after Islam hammer and tongs? What's your view on that?
Yeah, so that's a very interesting point. I've made a conscious effort to how do I put this? To appeal to the Muslim moderates or the Muslims that are for peace. So it's very easy for me to say, F Islam and F this and F that, and Muhammad's a pedo. I can do that, and I get more views. And in fact, I probably would get more views and be more controversial. And, oh my God! But for me, I don't think I've achieved my goal, which is to build the bridge between the agnostic atheist community and the Muslim community. That's my goal. I want Muslims, even if I can't convince them that the religion is wrong, that's fine. If I can convince them that you should be able to take a joke, that free speech is good, and jokes against Islam should not be punished with violence, if I can convince them of that, I think I would have done something amazing. I think it's a long way to go yet. Even in the West, forget about Muslim majority countries, even Muslims in the West, you will have, unfortunately, an uphill battle convincing them that if someone makes fun of Islam, that doesn't mean that they should be killed or punished or fined or imprisoned or anything like that. People should be allowed to make fun of Islam, and that doesn't mean that they're bad people. I make fun of Islam, yet I love Muslims. I genuinely love and care for Muslims, which is why I make fun of Islam and why I talk about Islam, because I think Islam, many things in Islam are holding Muslims back. One of them is this very sensitive nature towards jokes and freedom of speech. So I think the role of the satirist is to, especially, this is going to sound condescending, and it probably is. So I apologize in advance to Muslims, but you have to be, it's like I have to teach you how to take a joke. Like with Jews or Christians or Hindus or other people in the West, you can go pretty hard on a joke straight away and they'll get it. But with Muslims, you've got to sort of teach, like, go easy on them, which is why my kind of comedy is sort of like, you have PG, 15, 18, whatever it is when you go to cinema. My kind of comedy is more PG and because I don't think Muslims, unfortunately, are even ready. Like, there's this guy on YouTube called Sci-10 Atheist. You might have seen his video. He does like cartoons, and his comedy on Islam is brutal. Like, I find some of his stuff funny, but it is like 18 plus, like brutal comedy. Unfortunately, I don't know how appealing or palatable that would be for the average Muslim. They'll just look at it and turn away, and nothing would go into their head. It's just too much for them. With me, at least they might watch the first 30 seconds and then be like, oh, whatever, like good comment or bad comment. But for me, I'm just trying to get in the door. And so I'm very conscious that I want to, on a satirical level, make fun of Islam, but I don't want to lose Muslims. I don't want to lose Muslims. I want Muslims to come along with us on this journey. They are part of the solution. I know some people don't think they are. I disagree with them. I think they are part of the solution. There are many Muslims who are becoming ex-Muslims, or many Muslims who are for freedom of speech and for secular values, but they are a minority, or at the very least a sizable minority, but very silent because they're scared because of what could happen to them if they speak out and go against the grain in their community or against their theology. So I'm very conscious of, listen, my family Muslims, man, I love them, so I'm very in the beginning, especially, I tried to make a comedy that I thought at least my family could laugh at. If my family were laughing at it, I thought, okay, I'm on the right track.
Yeah, unfortunately, these days, somewhere down the line, genuine efforts get tarnished, and you get lumped in with the other sides. I'll give you a very tangible example of what kind of atheism turns me off. There's this YouTuber, he was quite famous in Singapore. He's now moved to America. Amos Yee.
Yeah.
That's the kind of atheism I'm not comfortable with, because he would make videos where he's humping the Bible and licking the Quran, and he was not brutal on the other religions from the East because he knew they were peace loving in that sense. But still, I mean, I am as brutal as it comes when it comes to Abrahamic religions. I mean, and I never hide it. But even I found Amos's, view. I'm not saying he should not be allowed to do it. That's his thing, and obviously there's a marketplace for that. But when I saw your videos, I was genuinely happy. I was like, this guy's funny, and he's not being censored, but he's censoring himself in a way that you're not going, because you're like, dire dire maro kind of. You don't want to go with a cannonball. You can throw in a left hook or a jab here and there, and then you can soften them up, and then eventually they get it. And I think the strategy, I would agree with it. There is a huge mass of Muslims who might be craving for this kind of humor. That the best analogy would be what you're trying to do is something like goodness gracious me.
100%. In fact, that I would say that goodness gracious me, for me, is genius, complete genius. Even now, when I watch some of those clips, I think like they still apply even today, and they're still relevant even today. It's complete genius, the whole thing. But goodness gracious me, like that's basically brown people making fun of brown people.
Yeah.
Right. And we go like they went hard. They didn't hold back. They went properly. And I like any brown person, even if they're not Indian or Pakistani, I know many like Arabs and Turks and whatever that absolutely love goodness gracious me, because it was the first kind of brown on brown sort of comedy in the UK, and it really was, I think, revolutionary, and I've got a lot of respect for those people. But I did not see a goodness gracious me Islam version. Yeah. Muslims making fun of themselves. It's all well and good when you say, oh, Pakistanis do this, Indians do that, and yeah, we have curry, and yeah, okay, fine, oh, better be a doctor. Okay, that's all well and good. But where is Muslims making fun of themselves? And I felt like it just wasn't there. And I remember looking at, white people make fun of themselves all the time. In fact, too much, to the point where they've actually debased themselves. They've almost lost their spine, unfortunately. Black people make fun of themselves. Like everyone makes fun of themselves except Muslims. And I was like, why, man? Why can't we bloody do it? We're not any more superior than anyone else, and we're not any more retarded than anyone else that we can't make fun of ourselves. So that was my inspiration. And sorry, I forgot the second part of the question. It was about.
So I was asking you about the self-censorship aspect of it. So.
Self-censorship, yeah. So for example, this is it. Amos, yeah, that's my Amos Yee. So him, again, if he wants to lick a Quran or hump a Bible, he's more than welcome to. I personally don't care, and I don't think he should be punished for it either way. But how many Christians or Muslims has he convinced of his position? Obviously, I don't know, but I can't imagine that many, because I just don't know as a strategy if it's the best thing to do, or it's the most effective thing to do is to look at the most valuable thing in their culture, tradition, religion, and completely desecrate it. It may work, it may not work. My understanding has been, like you said, inch by inch, work it in there. So for example, if you go to the gym and you want to do a bench press and you've never been to the gym before, I'm not going to say, start bench pressing 100 kg, right? I'm going to go easy with you. I'm going to just do, maybe just the bar the first time, and then you put on a few more weights. And then when you think you can do it, you work up and work up. I think the same, unfortunately, is the same with comedy, the same with critique and satire. We need to sort of train them. And this sounds so bad and condescending, but almost train them and say, listen, you make fun of me, I make fun of you. One knock joke, you give me, and then we work up from there. So that's what I'm trying to do. I'm always trying to show them how it can be done.
Yeah, I don't think it's condescending, because sometimes people do need to get this reminder and a check, or what I call a reality check, that you guys don't take yourself so seriously. It's all good, life's good, and religion is all fine and dandy, and religion gives a beautiful structure to society. Again, I'm not one of those atheists who believes in destroying the structure of religion. I just believe you piggyback on the structure provided by religion, and you change religion completely. That's my strategy. So because we need religion. I think the biggest mistake in the West was, rejecting religion, and then the society is empty, and then everybody runs around, and then everybody goes to Jordan Peterson. So it's like Jordan Peterson is the daddy of the whole West now. So the West just discovered Papa recently. So
yeah, I mean, yeah, he's their long lost father. And I actually like Jordan Peterson a lot for his psychology and other stuff. When it comes to religion, I sort of cringe sometimes. I mean, I don't know if you've been following the whole Sam Harris, Jordan Peterson. They were having these debates, and even before that, Jordan Peterson was on the Sam Harris podcast, and he's obviously a very intelligent guy. Jordan Peterson, like, there's no, he's very intelligent, very sharp. He knows when it comes to science and psychology and psychiatry, whatever you want to call it, spot on. And I actually enjoyed so many of his lectures when it came to his interpretation of the Lion King or whatever. I like it, it's fine. But when it comes to when Sam Harris is trying to push him on religion and push him on God and say, by the way, there is no proof, there is not real. And he's like, no, but it has to be real. But what does real even mean? It's more real than real. And when you start playing these word games, it just frustrates me. And it's quite disappointing, to be honest with you, because he has so much rigor in other stuff, in other aspects of his thought. But when it comes to religion, he has a soft spot. And like you were saying, he said, if you were to get rid of religion, you have nothing. And I don't necessarily agree with that. Yes, you have nothing. Sorry, that's not even true. They got rid of religion, but they replaced it with the state. Like, for example, with communism and all these people, they're still like, you're not an atheist if you still believe in the state. If you're a statist, you can say I hate God. As far as I'm concerned, you're even a bigger worshipper than you were before, because the state, unlike God, actually has real power. So it's actually more dangerous on some level to be a statist, because the state can have guns, and people have killed hundreds of millions in the last 20th century because of the state in trying to enact some sort of equality or some sort of justice in this world. If you say God will give us justice in the next, okay, Chalo, TK, we'll find out when we get there. But if you're going to say, no, we're going to have it in this world, and using the power of the state, hundreds and millions of people have died because of that, been killed brutally and been oppressed because of this ideology of communism and so on and so forth. So I disagree with Jordan Peterson when it comes to religion, and I really wish he was consistent in his beliefs the same way he is with other parts. But you're right, he has filled a hole in Western society that has been there for some years now, because they got rid of religion, and I don't know if they replaced it with statism, or they replaced it with consumerism, or whatever you want to call it. But he's a very interesting phenomenon, and we'll see where he is in the next 5-10 years and what happens with this movement.
Oh yeah, I'm actually a fan of Jordan Peterson myself, but my problem is that I read his book, and when I read his book, I realized that, oh my God, he's like Deepak Chopra. So when it comes to his views on religion, are just like Deepak Chopra. I mean, they're words, but I don't understand what they mean, and I'm not that stupid. I'm actually a reasonably well-read guy, and I read a lot. So when I was reading, I was like, just समझ नहीं
क्या कह रहा है यार?
Yeah,
सीधा बोल.
Yeah, and the moment you read his views on the gender gap or other subjects, he's very precise, and you can
very.
You made a very important point when you have that discussion with Jordan Peterson. He never says, what do you mean by God? What do you mean by faith? He'll never do that. What do you mean by gender?
Yeah, what do you mean by Gap? Do you mean like the t-shirt brand Gap, or do you mean like a Gap? Like, he would never say that.
Doesn't do that. So it's there, but it is what it is. Now, I wanted to ask you this question, and it's about, obviously, you call yourself an ex-Muslim, and your ethnicity, quote unquote, is the subcontinental, South Asian, Pakistan origin Wali identity. And here's my question. Now, you say you're ex-Muslim. Now, Pakistan, if you ask me, was built on the premise that Jinnah and a lot of people at that time, Muslim thinkers, obviously Jinnah took on the thought process of someone else. Basically, Aligarh Muslim University came up with the concept of, Hindus and Muslims are two separate nations, so they can't live together. So Muslims who believed in that concept, who bought that idea, they got Pakistan, and the Muslims who did not buy that idea, and many of them who could not travel, honestly, but over a period of time rejected the idea anyways because they did not go to Pakistan, they stayed in India. Now, the moment you say you're ex-Muslim, somebody's going to ask you, you stay in England, obviously. If somebody asks you what you are right now, in your case, you can say, I'm a Brit. But, fundamentally, eventually you do call yourself Pakistani. Now, I find that very interesting, because if you say you're ex-Muslim, what's the point of being Pakistani then? Because Pakistan, isn't it a theocratic state, and isn't Pakistan directly associated with being a Muslim?
Yeah, so I've spoken to quite a few Pakistani ex-Muslims over the last year, and this is a question that, there's so much internal conflict or contradictions or different views on this subject. Because if you look at the founder of Pakistan, Jinnah, he was very secular or pretty much atheist. I mean, some people believe he's atheist, some people believe he's a Muslim. Very controversial guy. He drank alcohol, everything. Like, he's basically a British guy who happened to be of Indian origin and created a Muslim state. Doesn't make any sense. But if you define Pakistan as being a state for Muslims, then yes, you're right. It doesn't, on paper, or if we're being very strict, it doesn't make any sense. If you're an ex-Muslim, then a Pakistani ex-Muslim, then what? Does your Pakistani identity vanish in thin air? It's a very interesting question, because what does it mean to be a Pakistani? If you ask Pakistanis in Punjab, they'll give you a different answer to Karachi or Sindh or Balochistan, whatever. So it's a new identity. It's like you said, it's a created identity. It's not something which is found in nature. Normally these kind of identities are formed over thousands of years and shared history and languages and cultures. Pakistan is a very recent thing, so it doesn't make sense, or it is not as coherent as what it means to be Indian or what it means to be Chinese. What it means to be Pakistani, you're basically an Indian that thinks Islam should be the basis of their state. But having said that, Jinnah himself was very secular, and there is a debate whether it's a state for Muslims or a state run by Islam. Two very different things. But there's been so much controversy on this issue, and depending on who you ask, which Pakistan you ask, they will get very, very different questions. And like you're saying, if you want a secular state, then the whole idea of Pakistan doesn't make sense. And this is something which I've been struggling with for the last, I would say, 2-3 years, is what does it mean to be a Pakistani, really? Because we were speaking off air earlier before, saying that I'm Punjabi, I've got more in common from a linguistic point of view, from a cultural point of view, with a Sikh Punjabi than I have with a Muslim Pathan, because I don't know Pathan culture. I don't know the language. I don't know what they do and how they do. But I know on some level, obviously my Punjabi's not great, but I understand it. Same music, food, culture, clothes, that sort of colorful, bouncy sort of music. I get it. So for me, it makes more sense. I actually identify more with Indian Punjabis than I do with the Pathan. So this is a new identity. It's not coherent. It's not as natural as what it means to be Iranian, Chinese, Indian, American, but it's a new thing. So it will take some time to form. And I think even in Pakistan now, we are having these discussions. We are having these conversations. What it means to be Pakistani. Is it Islamic? Or can anyone be a Pakistani, even if you're Hindu, Christian, Sikh, non-practicing Muslim? And I'm afraid I don't really have a straight answer for you, because as it stands, there is no answer.
And fair enough, and I respect that honesty at your end, because obviously at one end of the spectrum there is someone like Tariq Fattah, who basically must have thought about this, and Tariq Sahib has said that I'm Indian. Well, I had no choice. It's not like I was asked whether we should have the partition or not, and the partition happened, and I just happened to be born there then. or I was forced to go there. I mean, I think Tariq Saab's family is from Bombay, or his wife is from Bombay at least. So Tariq Fattah is very clear when he says, I'm an Indian, and that's my identity. I just happen to be Pakistani by an accident of, choices of my ancestors. But I mean, I think this is going to be the struggle in the future when it comes to Pakistanis who will secularize. I think the moment more and more Pakistanis start secularizing and more Pakistanis start, disassociating themselves from the larger Islamic identity, they're going to have this conundrum, which obviously, interestingly, Muslims in India don't have that. Muslims in India have their Indian identity. They can always fall back and say, yes, I have an Indian identity. My ancestors were Hindus. For whatever reasons, it could be force, it could be choice, it could be, luring them or coercion, whatever. My ancestors converted to Islam, but I'm an Indian. And there is a debate in India too. Obviously in India, if you watch news channels, there is this thing. Muslims are always are you Indian first or are you Muslim first? And there is this friction. Don't get me wrong. I mean, I'll be the first one to admit that friction in India too. But I see that friction far more when it comes to Pakistan, and especially when you leave Islam, because if you leave Islam, you really have nothing left. Yeah, I mean, at least as far as I'm concerned. And again, obviously anybody can reject this, but whenever I would meet someone like you, when I used to study in Canada, or I travel to America all the time, or and I go to the UK too, I always tell them, the moment you say you're ex-Muslim and you're of the same genetic stock that I am, you're basically Indian. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say ideologically, if we're going to say, I mean, ideologically, that would make more sense because India is a secular democracy. So if you're an ex-Muslim, it's a very high chance you're in favor of secular democracy and you're not in favor of an Islamic kind of state, although it's not, which is Pakistan. So, yeah, I mean, it's a very interesting point, and I've never thought about it before this conversation, which is why I am have recently become interested in learning about Indian history in general, and not just the Mughal era, but before that as well, and looking at it as a whole. And unfortunately, sorry. So sorry, it's just my phone. So I have recently been trying to, baby steps, trying to learn more about the Indian culture, the Indian history before Islam, and just understand how the subcontinent has become the way it's become. Because there's so many Muslims here. I was on a live stream yesterday speaking to many people, and one of the guys on the live stream was a Sikh, Raj, who's a fantastic guy, and he was saying at one point in time there were no Muslims in India. Now there are over, I don't know how many, 100 millions, whatever it is. So don't tell me that Islam is not going to take over the UK. Now, obviously, he was maybe being a bit over the top or something like that. But I thought about that for a point. I said, wow, that's a very good point. There were no Muslims in India at one point. And now you have two states, in Pakistan, Bangladesh, which are over 90% Muslim. And you've got India, which also, I think, are 25% or 20% Muslim. Something along those lines.
Officially, they say it's 14%, but as you know, it's India. So
it'll
be around 17 to 18% in my estimate.
So around nearly 20% Muslims in India. So that's a lot of Muslims, and the same identity crisis that Muslims are having in Pakistan, in India, they're also having in the UK, in the US, wherever. I would say there is a global Muslim identity crisis going on. Who are we as a people? What do we stand for? Like Christians, unless you're talking about a minority of them, would not say we want a Christian state or a Christendom. They've gotten over that. But Muslims, a lot of them, I don't know how many, but would say we want an Islamic state, or a state that is governed by Islam, or we derive laws or principles or our constitution from Islam. Some would say, no, I want to be in a secular state. So we are, unfortunately, a confused people. We are on the defensive because I have been. Think about it this way: Muslims in the beginning were a handful of people, yet they on a civilizational point of view, achieved a lot. They took over a lot of land. They made a lot of money, a lot of resources. They actually did more contribution towards science and mathematics back in the days than now. Even so, now we have 1.6 billion. If you told those Muslims at one point in time we'll be 1.6 billion strong, but, oh, can you believe how powerful we would be in the earth? Yet we are at the weakest point ever in our history. So that is humiliating. Even as an ex-Muslim, I'm still embarrassed or humiliated, because I know Islam is not a race, it's a religion. I understand that. But just as a sort of my wider community, I'm like, guys, man, what have we done? What are we doing, man? Like, we're so big in number, yet so like sort of minimal in our positive force. Of course, that's not to say that Muslims don't do good things, but I'm talking about, you know, in terms of Nobel Peace Prize or scientific achievements and all these different kind of things. Where the hell are we? And it hurts. Even as an ex-Muslim, it hurts. So we need to figure out who the hell we are, and we need to reconcile our identity with our nationality, with our ethnicity, with our blah blah blah. Whatever the answer is, however you want to reconcile it, great. I don't care if you're Muslim first, second, third. I'm interested in what is your output. What are you doing for your community? That is what I'm interested in, because we can have these questions about identity all day long. And even in 100 years' time, do I feel Muslim? Do I feel Pakistani? Do I feel British? I don't care how you feel, right? Show me what you got.
You know, you made a very interesting point about history, and another very interesting aspect which I wanted to ask you as a follow-up to the last question, and anyways you mentioned in the answer, was another very interesting thing I used to find when I would meet Pakistanis in Canada or in America, their sense of history. I'm specifically talking about the subcontinental Muslims of Pakistan, not even of Bangladesh, but especially Pakistan. Their history starts with Ibn Qasim. That's it. When Muhammad Ibn Qasim comes to, Afghanistan and Pakistan, in that area, and that's when their history starts. And I would always ask them, aren't you interested that there is at least a 3,000-year history in that period, in that landmass? And it's freaking amazing, that history. Don't you want to know the philosophies of the past? Don't you want to know how one of the most earliest sects of that area were actual proper atheists called Cārvākas? Something that I call myself, that I'm a Cārvāka. Materialism was thriving in India at that time. Even within, the so-called Astika community, where, in Hinduism, Astika and Nastika is not based on the belief in a supernatural deity. Astika is basically groups who believed the Vedas were the authority, and Nastikas were groups who said the Vedas are not the authority, the Vedas can be questioned. So within the Astika community also, there was a school called Sankhya, and Sankhya does not believe in a supernatural deity as such. So it's fascinating, and I would always share it with them. And the moment I would share these anecdotes, or about the Gupta dynasty or the Mauryas, or let's say other dynasties before Islam came to India, they would get interested immediately. And I would tell them that the moment you study the entire history of the subcontinent, you just can't call yourself Pakistani. You have to say you're Indian who happens to be a Muslim. That's all. That's what I say. I mean, that's what Indian Muslims, by and large, I want to believe that's what they believe. Although there's a huge identity within India, which is now associating itself with this global ummah, which I think is the biggest problem. I think the biggest solution, whether it's UK or whether it's Muslims in Pakistan or in Bangladesh or in India, we have to de-link them from the global Muslim identity. So you are Indian who just happens to be Muslim, Christian, Hindu, whatever, Pastafarian, whatever you want to associate yourself with. Now, what do you think, about this whole aspect of studying history in detail? And maybe that would solve the identity crisis.
I think this is just my opinion, and I haven't studied history extensively as other people, but I think on some level, if subcontinent Muslims studied pre-Islamic history, they would on some level have to admit that their ancestors or their perception of their ancestors, like these great people and great warriors and charitable people, is not all that. And if they have to admit that their ancestors, or the way Islam spread in India, and there was like a massive genocide and millions of people were killed in the process, that kind of undermines their whole perception. It kind of undermines this glorious image they have of Islam and how Islam was spread through peace and blah, 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 blah. And that is in direct conflict with their identity and their perception of the world and themselves. So when I was reading stories like this as a Muslim, or hearing about how Islam spread to different parts of the world through violence or through conquests, I felt very, very uncomfortable. Because on one side, I'm saying the Iraq war is wrong. Americans have no business going to anyone else's country and telling them how to live. On the flip side, I'm saying it was good that the Muslims went to so-and-so country and took over their land and converted them to Islam and blah, blah, blah. How is it possible for me to reconcile the two? It's not. So this is the kind of problems that Muslims are going to have if they were to look at their history objectively. And I'm saying, you don't have to become self-hating Muslim. I'm saying all empires do this. The Romans, the Greeks, the ancient Egyptians, the Christians, the Muslims, Hindus, everyone's done this. Everyone's played this dirty game of empire. Okay? If you haven't taken over anyone else's land, it's because you were too weak or because someone else took over your land. That not because of any superior moral reason, right? I don't think one group of people are any more moral or less moral than everyone else. I think they're all the same. So I'm not saying have this self-hating thing, and I think maybe Tariq Fattah goes a bit too far in my opinion. I think I haven't heard him say one thing positive about Pakistan. I'm not saying you have to, but I just find say one thing positive. It's all anti. Yes, you can be anti-Islam. I don't understand Tariq Fattah because he says he's a Muslim, but he seems to be criticizing not Muslims but Islam as a doctrine the most, and I just haven't figured him out. Although I find him very interesting to talk to or to listen to, but I just haven't figured him out. I'm not saying you have to go to that extent. I'm saying just recognize that before you were Muslim, you were Hindu, and there's nothing wrong with that. Or you were Sikh, or you were whatever, or Buddhist, or whatever you want to call it, or even Christian. And just have a well-rounded, open, have a well-rounded opinion or understanding of the world, and an open mind when it comes to reading history. We only want to, and this is not only with Muslims, this is with anyone. We only want to read history that reinforces our perception of the world or makes us feel good. I want to read the history where my ancestors were kings. I want to read the history where my ancestors discovered mathematics or science or whatever it is. I don't want to read the history where my guys, people that look like me, were doing the killing. Because then how does that make me feel? Which is why I have become a libertarian. Because in a very Islamic way, no father shall take the sin of, no son shall take the sin of his father. Let's say, Muslims say, if someone did 9/11, what's it got to do with me? I didn't fly the planes. Okay, so if you can look at that from a critical distance and say, yes, they are the same religion as me, but that's not me. You can look at Muhammad bin Qasim and say, yes, they're the same religion as me, but that's not me. I can disagree with him. It's okay for me I can be Muslim and still disagree with him. That level of nuance, I don't know if it's there. And I'm not even looking for one direct answer or one clear-cut Muslims are bad. I'm saying let's introduce nuance into the conversation.
On the point of Tariq Fattah, I think what Tariq Fattah is very interesting. I think he has certain rules. He never goes after the Prophet. He's never criticized Prophet Muhammad. And he basically rejects all the hadiths. And he obviously understands Quran in a particular way. And he says that, it is in a certain context and a certain time. And Tariq Fattah is very clear. He's like, I'm an Indian. The partition was what it was. And it ends there. I think that's what his point is by and large. I've read his books too. So that's what it is. I think one of his books, Why the Jew is Not My Enemy. And I forgot the name of the one before that. I think that one book, I think, is very important. What happens is, I kind of get where you're coming from. he does go after Pakistan all the time, and if you are slightly sympathetic to Pakistan, you can get irritated. And I hear you, and I get what you're trying to say. Don't get me wrong. I know Indians love Tariq Fattah, especially a certain type of Indian. Yeah, Tariq Fattah is a hero there. But yeah, I get it. If you're a Pakistani and you're a reasonable Pakistani, like some, I don't think you are a Pakistani. I think you're a British Muslim or a British ex-Muslim, whatever. I certainly look at you in that way. And I mean, if somebody asked me, Waleed kya hai? So I would say Waleed is a British ex-Muslim of Indian ancestry. That's what I would say. And Waleed happens to be, from that side of the border. That's all it is for me. That's how I look at it. And I mean it in a good way. I don't mean it in a condescending way. I think you are one of us. I genuinely believe you are one of us. Does that mean I believe Pakistan and India should merge together? Hell no. No way. I mean, I just don't want your problems on that side of the border coming into my country. I am crystal clear. But the moment I meet someone who says, I have delineated myself from the conceptual idea of why Pakistan was created, I say, welcome to the family, brother. That's all I say.
That's very interesting.
You can follow whatever you want to follow. You can be a Pastafarian for all you want to be. You can do what you want to be. Welcome to the family, because you believe in the principle of mutual respect. This is the Hindu concept. The Hindu concept is, it's not tolerance. I know the West is obsessed with tolerance. We should be tolerant. Tolerance is the most condescending, irritating thing I've heard in my life. Like, do you say someone when they're at the dinner table, I'm tolerating you? Or do you tell your wife, I am tolerating your views, my dear? I mean, your wife will slap you.
Yeah.
Tolerance is bullshit. Tolerance is required when you believe the other side is garbage and I can't kill them, so I'll tolerate them.
Yeah.
Mutual respect comes when you say, you know what, I have my views, you have your views, but you know what, we're from the same stock, that is of the human race. Let's live together, let's believe in freedom of speech, and let's give each other space. And I believe that is the Indian way or the Hindu way. And when I say Hindu, I don't mean it theologically, I mean it geographically. So to me, even a Muslim in India is basically Hindu. Hindu to me is not a religious identity, it's a geographical identity. And Hindus follow different darshanas. That's a Sanskrit word. And the darshana could be Islam, it could be Christianity, it could be, the Hare Krishnas, it could be anything, or it could be a Cārvāka like me who says there is no divinity in anything. So that's how I look at the world. So, whenever I meet folks like you, and, I genuinely like what you guys are doing, because I think, and my support would be more to guys like you, Majid Nawaz, Raheel Raza, or Irshad Manji. And even if you look at Ayan Hirsi Ali's stand, if you notice, from book number 1 to book number 2, she's diluted her stand a lot, because even she realized that, if I go hammer and tongs at almost 2 billion people, it's not going to work. You have to, be reasonable and say, okay, the Christians also, did the mental gymnastics and said, kill, kill, kill in my text actually means kiss, kiss, kiss. And, we are all happy people and all that, everybody is allowed to contextualize and do mental gymnastics for their words. So why not the Muslims? I hope you get what I'm trying to say.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Just on Tariq Fattah, I understand so for example, this is a whole different topic, and I'm sure we've got to wrap up in a bit, but on just like he says, he doesn't criticize Muhammad. Why? If you're so no, but I mean, why? I mean, this is what I don't understand. How could Muslims only know how to pray, only know how to do Hajj, how to do so many of their core rituals from the hadiths? So this is a very pick and choose kind of mentality, and I used to be like this as well, because this is the only way I could reconcile it. Well, if I ignore the hadith, then all my problems will go away. Okay, but then you can't pray salah or namaz, or you can't do hajj, and you can't do umrah, you can't do all the different other rituals and all the other core things that you will do in Islam, because you get them from hadith. And if you look at the Quran, what about wife beating? What about all these other issues that are in the Quran? Sex slavery. That's not hadith. So, fine, Tariq Fattah wants to have his cake and eat it as well, which is what I used to do. So I'm not having too much to forget him. I used to do that as well. So, oh, if I ignore the hadith, all these problems will go away. Some of them do, like the issue of stoning and throwing gays off cliffs. That's in the hadith. That's not in the Quran. But what about the other stuff? How are we going to do? What about hellfire? What about the polytheists and all that? That's all in the Quran. That's not in the hadith. So, so I don't completely get the guy, but I would be very interested to understand his ideas a bit more clearly. But yeah.
Oh yeah, so I'll tell you something that I always answer. Whenever I sit across with an ultra rabid left-leaning guy in India, and they say, "Oh, you are anti-Muslim," I was like, "Yeah, right. I've got Muslims in my family. I'm anti-Muslim." Anyways, and then I tell them, it's like, you have to understand where I come from. If India Islamizes, the moment India Islamizes, the first person who's going to be killed is me, because I'm two things: I'm Hindu and I'm atheist. So yeah. I'm sorry if I believe, and when I say words like demography is destiny, I'm not saying it just for the Hindus. I'm saying it from the point of view of every single, moderate, normal person who does not take things seriously and has moderated and modernized themselves enough to live in the current world, which is basically, some of the values are from the West. People don't realize how many of the values, which are Enlightenment values, are actually influenced by the East, because nobody wants to talk about that. It's always, oh, the West gave everything to the world. No, the East actually had a lot to offer. A lot of Buddhist philosophy, a lot of Hindu philosophy, and that's the whole thing. And well, it's an ongoing discussion, and all I can say is, people like you, and when I saw your videos and when I heard you chat with Sham and Hassan, I think it was Hassan. Haris. And I was so glad that you guys were having that conversation. I was like, I have to talk to this guy, because this is the kind of person that needs to be, spoken with, and you guys are the people who are going to basically moderate the society. It's like, if I go there, they'll be like, "Tum Hindu ho, tum kyon bol rahe ho?" And it has to come from within, and all power to you, man.
I really appreciate that. And what I try and do on my channel is try and talk to people from all different from all different religions, from all different perspectives: ex-Muslims, Muslims, Hindus, Jews, Christians, even people who I identify as alt-right, white nationalists. I've spoken to everyone, because that's the only way. If you can show me another way, I'll happily do that. Non-violent way. Of course, you can take over someone's country and whatever. That's the end of that. But this is having these types of dialogue is the only way in solving some of these issues. And for me, when I'm sitting, like I spoke to Sham, I spoke to Haris, I spoke to Farhan, Qureshi as well. I'm just sitting there and I'm learning, and I'm learning from you also. So for me, I'm literally asking questions out of curiosity, because I want to know the answer, not because I want to push one agenda here or there. But I'm here learning, and just like the questions you asked me today, that will give me some thought. What does it mean to be Pakistani once you've left Islam? What's left? Other than maybe a sort of like, I identify with Lahore, so I would say I'm Lahori, I'm culturally Punjabi. So if that's on this side of the border, then I suppose I'm Pakistani. But on a more ideological level, what does that mean? That's a question that I have to go away and think about, and that's a question that I will ask other Pakistanis as well. But I'm just trying to learn as much as possible and trying to spread this sort of thing that we have here in this space. I'm trying to spread it as much as possible and get different people to talk to each other from different points of view. So, that's what I would say. And thank you for watching that, and thank you for having me on. I genuinely really, really appreciate that.
Pleasure is all mine, man. And one passing note, I've got a bit of Lahore in me too. My nanny was from Lahore.
That's great. Listen, if which part of India are you actually in now?
Oh, I was born and raised in Mumbai, but obviously originally Pind, as they say. Mera Pind, Amritsar and Lahore.
Oh, okay. That's good, because my granddad also had a lot of affinity for I think it was Amritsar or Ludhiana, I can't remember now. Parts of the Indian side of Punjab as well. So of course, we have common ancestry, common roots in the India and Pakistan. So I've thoroughly enjoyed this, man.
Same here, man. Take care. Have a great day.
All the best.